The blood streaming from Belinda Winters' split lip splattered onto the dusty ground behind Silverton's Silver Dollar Saloon. Her shaking fingers fumbled to adjust her torn sleeve, desperate to hide the purple-blue welts marking her pale skin. Colorado Territory, 1878, was no place for a woman without protection, a lesson she was learning the hard way. Found you. The slurred voice of her employer, Edward Thornton, sent ice through her veins. Thought you could just run off after breaking my favorite crystal. Get back inside, girl. Belinda pressed herself against the rough wooden wall, her heart hammering. 6 months ago, she'd arrived in Silverton with dreams of a respectable position as a hotel maid. Now she was hiding behind a saloon, her face bruised and her dignity in tatters. Step away from her. The voice was deep, steady as bedrock, and unfamiliar. Through her swollen eye, Belinda saw a tall figure silhouetted against the setting sun. Dust coated his long duster, and the silver star pinned to his vest caught the fading light. "This ain't your business, lawman," Thornton spat. "She works for me." "Not anymore, she doesn't." The stranger stepped forward, revealing a weathered face beneath the brim of his hat. "Miss, are you all right?" Belinda couldn't find her voice. Pressing herself harder against the wall, Thornton lurched forward. "Now see here," the stranger moved with unexpected speed, catching Thornton's arm and twisting it behind his back in one fluid motion. "I believe I made myself clear. The lady is no longer in your employ." "Who the hell do you think you are?" Thornton gasped. "Owen Mitchell, U.S. Marshal." He increased the pressure on Thornton's arm until the man yelped. "And I've got half a mind to arrest you for assault." Thornton paled. "It was just discipline. She broke your crystal, I heard. Worth more than a woman's face, is it?" Marshal Mitchell's voice was dangerously soft. "Get back inside. If I see you within 10 feet of this woman again, you'll be riding to the territorial prison in shackles." After Thornton stumbled away, cursing under his breath, the marshal turned his attention to Belinda. His stern expression softened as he took in her injuries. "Miss, you'll never hide behind a saloon again, not while I'm in Silverton." He removed his bandana and offered it to her. "Let's get you somewhere safe." Belinda took the cloth with trembling fingers. "Why would you help me? You don't even know me." "Don't need to." He kept a respectful distance. "No one deserves to be treated that way. Now, there's a doctor's office 2 blocks from here. Will you let me escort you?" Something in his steady gaze made Belinda straighten her shoulders despite the pain. He wasn't leering or pitying, just present and certain. For the first time since arriving in this dusty mining town, she felt seen as a person rather than a possession. "Yes," she whispered. "Thank you, Marshal." Dr. Frederick Porter's examination was thorough but gentle. "No broken bones, thankfully," he said, applying a salve to Belinda's cheek. "But these bruises will take time to heal." Marshal Mitchell waited outside the examination room, his hat in his hands. When Belinda emerged, he stood immediately. "Doctor says you'll mend," he said, relief evident in his voice. "Do you have somewhere to stay tonight?" Belinda looked at the floor. "My room was at the saloon." "Mrs. Reynolds at the boarding house takes in women in need," Dr. Porter suggested. "Good Christian woman, never turns away someone in trouble." "I'll take you there," Marshal Mitchell offered. "And we can collect your things tomorrow," when Thornton's had time to cool his temper. As they walked the dimly lit streets, Belinda studied her rescuer from the corner of her eye. He was older than she'd first thought, perhaps mid-30s, with streaks of silver at his temples. Deep lines fanned from his eyes, speaking of years squinting against harsh sun and harsher realities. But his steps were steady, his movements precise. "How long have you been marshal here?" she asked, breaking the silence. "Just arrived yesterday. Silverton's growing fast with the mines." Territory decided they needed more law than a part-time sheriff. He glanced at her. Seems they were right. Mrs. Reynolds was exactly as described, a stout woman with iron-gray hair and iron-clad principles. She took one look at Belinda's face and ushered her inside without questions. "You'll stay as long as you need," she declared, "and that animal Thornton will answer to God someday. And possibly sooner to me," Marshal Mitchell added quietly. Over the next 2 weeks, Belinda's bruises faded from purple to yellow, then disappeared entirely. Mrs. Reynolds proved to be not only kind but well-connected. She secured Belinda a position at the Mercantile, away from the saloon's dangers and Thornton's reach. Marshal Mitchell checked on her regularly. At first, Belinda assumed it was official concern, but soon noticed how his visits extended beyond professional duty. He brought her a book of poetry one evening, admitting with surprising shyness that it had kept him company on lonely trails. "I never learned to read proper," Belinda confessed, tracing the leather cover. "My pa thought it wasn't necessary for girls." "Would you like to?" Owen asked. When she nodded, he smiled. "Then I'll teach you." Their lessons began that very night at Mrs. Reynolds' kitchen table. Owen was a patient teacher, never showing frustration when Belinda stumbled over words. Instead, he told stories of his own education, fragmented years at a mission school, then self-taught from newspapers and wanted posters. "Learning comes in many forms," he said, "and it's never too late to start." As summer bloomed across the mountains, so did something unexpected between them. Belinda found herself watching the door of the Mercantile each afternoon, hoping to see Owen's tall figure. For his part, the marshal found increasing reasons to patrol past the store. "He's sweet on you, Mrs. Reynolds observed one evening as Belinda prepared for another reading lesson. "And not just out of pity, before you start thinking that. I've known many lawmen. They don't spend their precious free time teaching reading unless there's something special drawing them." Belinda blushed. "He's a marshal. I'm just a shop girl with a past." "We all have pasts, child. It's what we do with our futures that matters." That night, Owen brought a newspaper instead of their usual book. "Thought you might like to practice with something different," he explained. "Plus, there's news you should know about." The headline, which she sounded out slowly, made her blood run cold. "Silver Dollar Saloon burns, owner flees territory." "Thornton," she whispered. Owen nodded grimly. "Left owing money to half the town and the mining company. Fire started in his office, likely trying to destroy evidence of his schemes. No one was hurt," he added quickly, seeing her expression. "But he's gone." "Good," Belinda said, surprising herself with the vehemence in her voice. "There's something else I should tell you." Owen looked uncharacteristically nervous. "I've been offered a permanent position here. Sheriff Andrews is retiring and the town council wants me to take over." "You're staying?" Hope fluttered in Belinda's chest. "If you think that's a good idea." His gaze held hers. "I find myself increasingly attached to Silverton, or rather to someone in it." Belinda's heart raced. "I think it's a very good idea, Marshal Mitchell." "Owen," he corrected gently. "I'd like it if you called me Owen." Their first proper outing came the following Sunday. Owen escorted Belinda to church, then to a picnic by the river. Under the aspen trees, with the sound of water rushing over rocks, he told her of his life before Silverton, years tracking outlaws across the territories. Nights under stars with only his horse for company. "It was a lonely life," he admitted. "I started to wonder if I'd ever have something different. And now," Belinda asked softly, "now I'm beginning to hope." He reached for her hand, his calloused fingers gentle against hers. "Belinda, I know it hasn't been long, but I feel..." A gunshot cracked through the air, interrupting his words. Owen was on his feet instantly, positioning himself between Belinda and the potential threat. "Stay here," he ordered, drawing his revolver. "Owen, no." But he was already moving toward the sound, leaving Belinda trembling beneath the trees. Minutes stretched like hours before he returned, holstering his weapon. "Just some miners celebrating a strike," he explained. "One fool firing into the air." Relief flooded her, followed by something fiercer. "Don't do that again." "Do what?" "Run toward danger without a word. I've lost everyone I ever cared about. I can't." She stopped, realizing what she'd revealed. Owen knelt beside her. "You care about me. More than I should, probably." His smile transformed his face, erasing years of hardship. "Then I'll be more careful. Because I care about you too, Belinda Winters. More than I thought possible." As autumn painted the mountains gold, Belinda's reading improved dramatically. She began helping with the mercantile's books, earning the owner's praise and a raise in her wages. Owen settled into his role as sheriff, bringing a steady justice to Silverton that made him respected, if not always liked. They courted properly, with Owen calling at Mrs. Reynolds' boarding house each Sunday and occasionally escorting Belinda to town socials. Mrs. Reynolds provided adequate chaperoning, though her convenient hearing problems gave them moments of privacy. "I never thought I could have this," Belinda confessed one evening as they sat on the porch swing. "After what happened at the saloon, I felt damaged, unworthy." "What someone does to you doesn't define your worth," Owen said firmly. "You're the strongest woman I've ever known." "I don't feel strong." "That's because you can't see yourself the way I do." He touched her cheek gently. "I see someone who survived, who's building a new life." "That takes courage." The first snow came early that year, blanketing Silverton in white silence. On the first Saturday of November, Owen arrived at the boarding house with his horse saddled and a mysterious plan. "You trust me?" he asked. "Yes," Belinda answered without hesitation. He helped her onto his horse, then mounted behind her. They rode north out of town, following a trail that wound through snow-covered pines. After an hour, they reached a small cabin nestled against the mountainside. "Whose place is this?" Belinda asked as Owen helped her down. "Mine." He looked almost boyishly nervous. "I've been working on it for months. Come see." The cabin was simple but solidly built. A stone fireplace dominated one wall with windows framing views of the mountains. Owen quickly started a fire, and warmth soon filled the single room. "It's not much," he said, watching her explore. "But there's good land here, room to build on, maybe someday." "It's perfect," Belinda whispered, understanding the unspoken question in his words. "Absolutely perfect." Owen crossed to her, taking her hands in his. "I don't have fancy words or a grand fortune to offer you. Just this place, my name, and a promise to spend every day trying to make you happy." "Belinda Winters, will you marry me?" Tears spilled down Belinda's cheeks. "Yes," she said. "Yes, Owen Mitchell, I will." They married on Christmas Eve, with snow falling softly outside the little church. Mrs. Reynolds gave the bride away, and Dr. Porter stood as Owen's best man. Belinda wore a simple blue dress that matched her eyes, and Owen had splurged on a new shirt and string tie. "I now pronounce you man and wife," the preacher declared. "You may kiss your bride." As Owen's lips met hers, Belinda felt the last shadows of her past finally release their hold. This was her beginning, her true life starting at last. Their wedding night at the cabin was tender and unhurried. Owen treated her with such reverence that Belinda's fears about intimacy melted away beneath his gentle touch. By morning, they were truly husband and wife in every sense, and Belinda discovered a joy she hadn't known existed. Winter settled around their cabin like a protective blanket. Owen still rode into town daily for his sheriff's duties, but evenings and nights belonged to them alone. They established routines, Belinda cooking while Owen brought in firewood, reading together before the fire, learning the contours of each other's bodies in the darkness. "I never thought love could be like this," Belinda said one night as they lay entwined beneath quilts. "I always feared it would hurt." "Some kinds do," Owen replied, stroking her hair. "But not ours, never ours." Spring brought challenges. The mountain thaw flooded parts of town, keeping Owen busy with rescue efforts. Belinda continued working at the mercantile, walking the now familiar trail to their cabin each evening. Their life wasn't wealthy, but it was rich in ways that mattered. On a rain-soaked night in April, Owen returned home later than usual, his expression troubled. "What is it?" Belinda asked, setting aside her mending. "Thornton's back." He spoke the words flatly. "Showed up at the Silver Strike Saloon this afternoon, drunk and boasting about his new gold claim." Belinda's hands trembled. "Did he ask about me?" "No, but word travels fast in small towns. He'll know you're here and that you're my wife now." Owen knelt before her chair. "I won't let him near you, Belinda. You have my word." "I'm not afraid," she said, surprising herself with the truth of it. "I'm not that woman hiding behind a saloon anymore." "No," Owen agreed, pride warming his voice. "You certainly aren't." For a week, life continued normally. Belinda glimpsed Thornton once from the mercantile window, but he didn't look her way. She began to hope he truly had forgotten her, too consumed with his latest schemes to bother with old grudges. Then came the day Owen left for the outlying ranches, investigating cattle rustling reports. Belinda closed the mercantile alone, declining offers of company for her walk home. The evening was mild, the trail familiar. She was halfway to the cabin when she heard hoofbeats behind her. Turning, she saw Thornton atop a bay horse, a sneer twisting his face. "Well, if it isn't the marshal's whore," he called, slurring slightly. "Moved up in the world, haven't you?" Belinda's heart pounded, but she stood her ground. "What do you want, Mr. Thornton?" "Just to catch up with an old employee." He dismounted, swaying slightly. "Your husband cost me a business, you know. Seems only fair I take something of his." Belinda backed away, calculating the distance to the cabin. "Owen will kill you if you touch me. Only if he finds out." Thornton lunged forward, catching her arm in a painful grip. "And who's to say he will?" What happened next occurred in a blur. The lessons Owen had quietly taught her over the winter, how to break a hold, where to strike to incapacitate, came flooding back. Belinda drove her knee upward, connecting solidly. As Thornton doubled over, she twisted free and ran. She didn't flee toward home, which would only lead Thornton there. Instead, she veered off the trail, using the terrain as Owen had taught her. Behind her, Thornton's curses and stumbling pursuit grew fainter. Belinda reached a rocky outcropping and pressed herself against it, controlling her breathing as she listened. Silence stretched around her. Had she lost him? The click of a revolver's hammer proved otherwise. "Clever girl," Thornton said, appearing around the rocks, "but not clever enough." Belinda stared down the barrel of his gun, fear freezing her in place. "Your husband should have minded his own business," Thornton snarled. "Now he'll learn what happens to men who interfere with Edward Thornton." The gunshot was deafening, echoing off the mountains. Belinda flinched, then realized she felt no pain. Thornton's expression of rage transformed to shock as he looked down at the spreading red stain on his chest. He crumpled forward, revealing Owen standing behind him, rifle still raised. "Owen!" Belinda rushed into his arms. He held her tightly, his heart hammering against hers. "Are you hurt? Did he touch you?" "No, I ran like you taught me." She looked at Thornton's still form. "Is he?" "Yes." Owen's voice was grim. "I came home early, heard his threats. I couldn't take the chance he'd fire." He cupped her face. "I almost lost you." "But you didn't," Belinda said firmly, "and you never will." The shooting was ruled justified self-defense. Thornton was buried in an unmarked grave, his passing mourned by no one. For Belinda, his death closed a chapter of fear she hadn't realized still haunted her. Summer arrived with unexpected news. "I'm with child," Belinda told Owen one golden evening as they sat on the porch of their now expanded cabin. Dr. Porter confirmed it yesterday. Owen's face transformed with wonder. "A baby, our baby, due in winter," she said, laughing as he gathered her in his arms. "You're happy then?" Happy doesn't begin to describe it. He knelt, pressing his ear against her still flat stomach. "Hello in there. Your ma and pa can't wait to meet you." That autumn, Owen was offered a position with the territorial court, more money, more prestige, but requiring relocation to Denver. Belinda watched him consider it, then decline. "But why?" she asked. "It would be better for our family. This is our home," he said simply. "The place where we found each other, where we're building our life. Some things matter more than advancement." Their daughter, Sarah Elizabeth Mitchell, arrived during the first snowfall of December. She had her father's steady gaze and her mother's determined spirit. Owen held her with awe, memorizing every perfect feature. "She's a miracle," he whispered. "So is this," Belinda replied, gesturing to encompass their cabin, their life together. "All of it." Years passed, bringing both joys and sorrows. They added a son, James, 2 years after Sarah. Owen survived a shooting that left him with a permanent limp. Belinda opened a small school in town, teaching others as she had been taught. On their 10th anniversary, Owen took Belinda back to the spot behind the Silver Dollar Saloon, now rebuilt and under new ownership. "Why here?" she asked, puzzled by his choice. "Because this is where our story began." He traced the faded scar on her lip with his thumb. "When I found you hiding here, I made a promise that you'd never hide again." "And I haven't," Belinda said softly. "Not from anything, not for years." "You gave me purpose when I was just drifting through life," Owen said. "You gave me a home, children, reasons to be better than I was." "We gave those things to each other," Belinda corrected, linking her fingers with his. "And we have so much more to give." They walked away from the saloon hand in hand, leaving the shadows of the past behind them. Ahead lay their home, their children, and the years still waiting to be lived together. For a woman who once hid behind a saloon with Bruises and a lawman who had never expected to stay, it was more than enough. It was everything. "I love you, Belinda Mitchell," Owen said as they crested the hill overlooking their cabin, smoke curling peacefully from its chimney. "And I love you, Sheriff Mitchell," she replied, the words as true now as the first time she'd spoken them. "Forever and always." In that moment, with the setting sun painting the mountains gold and their children's voices carrying on the wind, Belinda knew with absolute certainty that some endings were actually beginnings. And this beginning, the one that started behind a saloon with Bruises, and a steady voice promising safety, had become the story she was meant to live all along.